feet, yes or no?
Yes, sir, I was on my feet.
You took the shot, right?
Yes.
At that point, this individual here that's down to your right, he's not reaching for your gun, is he?
He did. He stood up.
Oh, so now he stood up now.
Yes, sir. He stood up before, too.
Well, let's do this then. You go over to him, right?
Yes.
You are about to take him into custody, right?
Yes.
You're going for what? Your handcuffs? Is that what you're doing?
I'm going to put hands on him.
You're going to put your hands on him. When you go to put your hands on him, that's when you see the dog, right?
Yes, sir.
At that point, you see the dog and you step away, right?
Yes, sir.
You step away to where you're right here, correct? Is that what you said?
In that area, I think I was a little, you're right, that.
And Mr. Rodriguez is still laying down on the couch, isn't he?
When I fired, I remember him standing up. He was actually jumping out in front of me.
So even though this individual is down, and then you begin to move to the left, Mr. Rodriguez gets up at the same time that you do, right?
I don't know if it was exactly at the same time. At that point, my focus directed right on the dog.
He's moving at the same time you are, correct?
I just said I don't know.
Well, didn't you just tell me that he was on his feet and you tried to stop the shot?
Just by the time I fired, yes.
Did you try to stop the shot while he was on all fours?
No, he was on his feet.
That's right, and he was moving toward the direction to stop the shot, right?
Yes.
Trying to stop the shot, not trying to do anything to you, right?
No, he's trying to, he stuck his hand out like he was trying to block bullets.
He wanted to save the animal, is what it appeared to you, right?
He was yelling, "Don't shoot my dog."
And he was asking you not to shoot the dog at the same time, right?
He wasn't asking, he was yelling, "Don't shoot my dog."
And he was yelling it loudly, right?
Yes.
That in and of itself doesn't indicate anything aggressive towards you, right?
No.
He wanted to save his dog, according to what you're telling us, right?
Yeah, the appearance is there, yes.
Well, no, you were there, right?
I was.
And that's what you believe, right?
That he was trying to stop the bullets.
To save the dog, right?
Yes.
He was willing to take one for the dog, right?
I guess so.
Well, no, you were there, right?
Well, he didn't take any rounds for the dog. He stuck his arm out.
But sticking your arm out to stop a shot, that's taking one for the dog, isn't it?
I suppose.
Well, you were there, right? And you indicated that he stuck his hand out, right?
Yes.
That's not going for your gun, is it?
No.
And in fact, you could have shot him right there if you wanted to, right?
I could have.
You didn't feel any threat right there? No?
No, I did not.
The bicycle, the one that you claim is the precipitating event, is behind you at that point, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And you'd seen it there before, right? In other words, as this progressed, you saw it there, right?
Yes, when I fired the round, so the bicycle wasn't behind me. The bicycle was behind me when I was trying to take him in custody. When I had moved, I moved away from the location where the bicycle was behind me.
And the bicycle was still behind you when he tried to stop the shots, right?
No, because I was over a little closer to where you're at.
You just told me that the dog was over there, right? Coming around the table, you told me that, right?
Yes, I did.
And that you were moving this way and you took the shot, right?
Yes, sir.
You told me that the bicycle was behind you, right?
The bicycle was further this way.
That's behind you, isn't it?
It's off to my right.
Isn't that behind you, sir?
Off to my right is not behind me.
So it's just off to your right, and this part right here, it's not your behind then, right?
Yes, it is.
Isn't that what was facing the bicycle?
No, my behind was facing the kitchen. The bicycle.
So if the bicycle's back here, you're indicating that no, that's not behind you. That's to your side, but not behind you then, right?
But again, I said it was a little further to your...
You were moving this way, right?
Yes, sir.
Bicycle's over here.
Yes.
This area over here in the corner, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that's not behind you.
It's off to my right.
It's off to your right, not behind you, correct?
Correct.
And then that's when Mr. Rodriguez moves in this direction, right?
Yes, he moved in that direction.
Wasn't going for the bike, was he?
No.
He was trying to stop the shot, right?
Yes.
After you shot the dog, he had a response to it, right?
Yes, he did.
Why don't you tell us what words he used? I'm sure you can remember them.
He reached for my gun.
No. I'm asking you about words, sir. I'm not asking you to tell me the stories you want me to tell. What were his words?
Why'd you shoot my fucking dog?
You do remember the expletive, right?
Yes, sir.
And throughout this whole thing, you don't remember you ever using that word, right? Ever.
No.
Probably might have, but you don't remember using it, right?
Yes, I may have.
And he asked you that question, and he was upset, right?
Yes, he was.
And this individual that was upset didn't have a shirt on, right?
No, he did not.
Didn't have a weapon in his hands, right?
No, he reached for my weapon.
Sir, did I ask you whether or not he reached for your weapon? Yes or no?
He did not.
Did he have any weapons in his hand?
No, sir.
Then at that point, according to you, he makes a movement, right? And he's right in front of you, right?
Yes.
And then you say, since you got your weapon up here, he makes a motion toward your gun, right?
Yes, he reached out and tried to grab my gun.
But he wasn't even able to touch your uniform, right?
He didn't reach for my uniform, he reached for my gun.
But you have your gun up here. Isn't that how you told me you shoot?
Up here.
Right up there. The way I'm holding it, right here, right?
That's not how you're holding it.
Well, I asked you previously if you held it out like this. You told me no, right?
It was not like this. It was like this.
So it's up at eye level, then, right? Closer to your chest, right?
Yes.
And yet, he comes this way, and you're saying he tries to grab your gun, and he's not able to even touch the gun, right?
Yes.
You didn't shoot him then, right?
No.
Because he didn't get your gun, right?
Correct.
And that moment passed, right?
Yes.
That was in the past, right?
Yes.
Whatever threat there was, you didn't take your shot, right? It was done and over with, right?
No, he took a second swipe at my gun.
At that point, that was done, wasn't it, sir? That first time he grabbed it, he didn't grab it, that was done and gone, and you didn't shoot it, right? Whether or not you perceived a threat, you held back, right?
Yes, I did.
Then you indicated that he's still in front of you, right?
Yes.
What hand did he try, in the first instance, what hand did he try to grab the gun with?
Right hand.
So he's moving like this, to try to stop the shot with his right hand, and then you say he then tries to reach for the gun, right?
Yes.
He's standing in front of you without a shirt, right?
Yes.
You say he tries to grab the gun again, right?
Yes.
Doesn't grab the gun at all, right?
No.
You don't shoot him then, right?
No.
And that threat passes. Whatever threat it might have been, that passed, right?
Yes.
At that point, you did not feel that you were able to shoot him, right? In other words, you didn't feel that you should have shot him, and you didn't, right?
I did feel threatened.
You felt threatened,
I
but
did not
that
shoot
threat
him.
passed, right? That threat passed, didn't it?
It did.
It was done and over with, right?
Yes, sir.
So now he's in front of you, no threat at all to you, because that threat has passed. All he is without a shirt, right?
He's still a threat.
He's standing there without a shirt, right?
Yes.
He's standing there without nothing in it, without any implement in his hands, correct?
Correct.
He's angry, right?
Yes.
You've been in other situations where the individuals have been angry, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And just because they were angry doesn't mean you shoot them, right?
Correct.
And in this case, that's all he was angry, right?
No, he was angry and tried to take my gun.
But that had already passed, hadn't it? That was in the past. You have to move forward, right?
It was in the past as far as time. It's not in the past as far as he's no longer a threat. He's made 2 attempts to take my gun.
But he wasn't able to do it, right?
No, he was not.
And at that point, those are in the past, right?
Yes, the threat is not gone, but the actions are in the past.
Well, the threat is gone in the sense that he's not grabbing for your gun any further, right?
No, the threat is not gone.
Well, he's not grabbing for your gun any further, is he?
After the second attempt, now.
That's done and over with.
Yes.
You're standing there then, and he's in front of you, right? You've got the gun in your hand, right?
Yes.
At that point, the bicycle is to your right, correct?
Yes.
Why'd you let him go get the bike?
I had my gun up at him. I gave him commands to get down on the ground.
You let him get the bike, right? Is that what you're saying?
He got the bike. I did not allow him to get the bike. I gave him commands to get down on the ground.
You've got your gun out, you're telling him to get to the ground, right? And this is him in front of you, right?
He's facing me.
He's facing you, right?
Yes.
And the bike is over there, according to you, right?
Yes.
And you're standing right there, right?
Yes.
And as he's doing this, he starts to go towards the bike, right?
Yes.
Taking him down at that point, couldn't you?
Shoot him?
No, you could have put your gun down in the holster, couldn't you?
No.
You couldn't have put
No,
the gun in the holster and stopped him physically. You couldn't have done that.
The threat is still an active threat. I gave him
I'm
commands.
not asking you if the threat.
Wait. Let him finish his answer, let him finish his question, so that we only have one person talking at the same time.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Martinez.
I'm not asking you if the threat is active, sir. I'm asking if you physically could have stopped him from going to get the bike.
Didn't feel that was an option at the time. He moved, and I don't think I had time to holster my gun and stop him.
You had the gun in your hand, right?
Yes.
You could have holstered it, right?
I don't think I had time to holster the gun and stop him from grabbing the
I'm not
bike.
asking you if you had time to holster and stop him. You had time to holster the gun, didn't you?
No, I did not.
So he was holding on to your hand such that you physically couldn't put it down, right? That's what you're saying?
No.
He was moving in this direction, wasn't he? Towards the bike, right?
Yes.
And a bicycle is an implement of transportation, isn't it?
Yes.
You're familiar with the fact that people ride them all the time. They go from place to place, right?
Yes.
And when he's there, he walked on over to the bicycle, right?
His movement was a little more than just a walk.
It was a quick movement to the bicycle, right?
Yes.
And he's in front of you when he does that, right?
He's off to my right.
Right. He goes over and he gets the bicycle, correct?
Yes, sir.
At that point, you're standing right here to his right, correct?
I had moved back some,
So now you're further away from him, right?
not that far.
You're further away from him right about here, right?
Further back that way.
Right here.
That's about right.
And he has the bicycle, right?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't pick it up immediately, does he?
Yes, he did.
He picked it up immediately, right?
Yes, he did.
And he starts to roll it back, doesn't he? If he picked it up immediately, this is where he picked it up, over here, right? This is where you said you got the bicycle from, right?
Yes, I think it was a little further away from that.
Right over here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
He picked it up, and this is when you say he picked it up, and this is when you were really, really scared, right?
He raised it up over here. He picked the bike up. The bike came up over his head over here.
So he's got this bicycle over here, and he's not rolling it then, right?
Yes.
He's actually picked it up physically right here, correct?
Yes.
And he picks it up and he moves this way, right?
Yes.
And he picks it up to the point that it's over his head, right?
He picked it up. I don't recall if it cleared over his head. I remember it being right up around here when I fired.
You remember the demonstration that you did, how high the bicycle was, and you told us that's how it was, with the bicycle right in front of you? Do you remember doing that demonstration?
I do.
And the bicycle was up here like that. He had the physical strength to pick it up, right?
Yes, sir.
Where was Officer Virgilio at that time?
I don't know.
Weren't paying attention to him?
No.
He wasn't speaking at all to the defendant?
No.
I'm sorry, he wasn't speaking at all to Mr. Rodriguez?
No.
Didn't hear a word?
I didn't hear that, no.
Was Mr. Rodriguez saying anything?
Let out a groan, like a growl, and his teeth were clenched, and
His
he
teeth
let
were
out.
clenched and he let out a growl and he picked up this bicycle, right?
Yes, sir.
And he picked up this bicycle and he was how far away from you, was he?
Maybe 3 feet.
So he was about 3 feet away from you, right?
Yes, sir.
About from distance from me to this woman here, right?
I said maybe 3 feet. I don't think that's 3 feet.
Well, is this 3 feet right here?
Have a tape measure?
Pardon?
Do you have a tape measure?
No, I don't have a tape measure. You're the one that says it's 3 feet.
I said it's approximately 3 feet, maybe
And
3 feet.
you can't tell me whether or not that's approximately 3 feet, right?
It's close, yes.
And at that point, the bicycle, he's got it in his hand, right?
Yes.
And he's got this bicycle in his hand, and you decide you're going to take your shot, right?
It was a reaction, not a decision.
So you're saying you weren't thinking at that point then, right? It's a reaction, not an intention, right?
Yes.
And if it's a reaction, at that point, and you're not thinking, then what could possibly be going through your head if you're just reacting?
Reacting to the threat.
What you're saying is it's not your fault. That's what you're saying, right?
I'm absolutely not saying that.
Well, you said you just reacted, right?
Yes, I did.
Which means you weren't thinking about it, right?
I'm reacting to the threat.
And the threat, as you're telling us now, is an individual with a bicycle up this far, right? In front of your face, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's in between you and that 3 feet, and in between you your gun, and your body, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're holding the gun again like this, right?
Yes.
And you're holding that, which is about chest level, right?
Yes, sir.
You're about what, 5'7"?
5'6".
You're 5'6", and holding it up right about here is about 5 feet 4 inches off the ground, right? Right about here, right?
I have no idea.
You don't know how high your shoulders are. Would it be about 5 feet, or you don't know?
I don't know.
But you're holding it up right about shoulder level, right?
Right up here.
And the bicycle's right in between you, right? And he's holding it there, right?
He raised it up, and I fired.
And it's between you and him at the time that you fired, right?
Yes, it is between us.
So that if you take a shot, and the shot, you did take it, right? He was in front of you, face to face, right?
Yes.
If you take that shot, and that shot is fired, the bullet, by necessity, has to go through the bicycle and anything that's in the way, right?
Through the bicycle, over the bicycle, under the
Well, the
bicycle.
bicycle's in the way, isn't it?
It has to go through an opening.
Well, but the bicycle's even closer to the muzzle of the gun, isn't it?
Yes.
Than his body is, right?
Yes.
And if there are any particles that are flying from the gun, those particles, if they hit the bicycle, would have created a void on his chest, wouldn't they?
That's possible.
Well, no, it isn't possible. These particles, although they're going very fast, they don't go through the metal, do they? You didn't see that?
You don't see any of that.
No, that didn't happen, right? The only thing that happened is, according to you, is the shot was taken and it hit him, right?
Shot was taken, it did hit him. I'm not an expert in...
I'm not asking if you're an expert. I'm just asking about what you indicated that there was something in between you and the person that you shot and killed, right? There's something in between, the bicycle, right?
Yes, sir.
And the bicycle has to be closer to you than the person who was shot and killed, right?
Yes.
And then, according to you, the shot is taken, what happens to the bike?
The bike falls, the suspect falls.
Immediately, right?
Yes.
So you take both shots at the same time while he's holding that bicycle, right?
Shots simultaneously, as quick as they could be fired. They were a double tap.
And the bicycle was held up for both of those shots, right?
I don't know.
Well, no, you were there. I mean, if you fired it very quickly, and he's holding up this bicycle, he's like, boom, boom, just like that, right?
I fired boom, boom. It was a double tap.
Right.
Boom, boom.
Right, so that he wouldn't have even had time to drop that bicycle, right? He didn't drop that bicycle before you fired the second shot, right?
I'm not an expert in time.
No, I'm not asking you being an expert in time. I'm asking about your eyes. I want you to tell me what you saw. I don't want anything about expertise. He did, according to your statement, did not drop that bicycle before the second shot, did he?
I don't know.
If you were perceiving this threat, why aren't you paying attention to the bicycle then?
The suspect is the threat. I fired on the suspect.
I thought you said that you were afraid he was going to take that bicycle and knock you on the head with it. Something like that. Didn't you say something like that?
I did.
Right?
Yes.
And that bicycle is in between you and that individual that is the threat, according to you, right?
Yes.
And that shooting that you indicated to us was one right after the other, right?
Yes.
And the bicycle never left Mr. Rodriguez's hands when you took those two shots, right?
I don't know.
Weren't you paying attention?
As much as I could. Yes, I was.
You were focused on it, right?
I was tunneled in on the threat at that point.
Yeah, the threat is him holding the bicycle, right?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know what Officer Virgilio is doing at that time, right?
I do not.
And was this sort of tunnel vision or this looking that you had at the time that the bike was up? That's the same tunnel vision that you had when you went to the door the first time, the second time, right? You left Officer Virgilio behind and didn't even know where he was, right? You were focused on what you were going to do, right?
I was not tunneled in on the door.
Well, you were tunneled in on what you were going to do, right?
I was moving in the direction of the door to knock. I had a job to do. I was not tunneled in. There was no lethal confrontation at that point that would cause a tunnel vision.
You keep saying it's your job. Your job is not to kill people, is it? It's to investigate crimes, isn't it?
My job is to investigate crimes.
And it's to pay attention and observe with regard to events that are going on, correct?
As much as possible, yes.
Well, and when you're in this kind of situation, adrenaline is flowing, isn't it?
In the confrontation, yes.
And there's a heightened sense of understanding of what's going on, right?
Know about the heightened sense.
Well, you're able to see what's going on and you're really paying attention, right?
As much as possible, yes.
And even though you're paying attention and there's this heightened sense of what's going on, you can tell us that the bike was up here for the first shot. You say that for whatever reason, you can't tell us where the bike was on the second shot, right?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't have anything else.
Redirect.
What does tunneled in mean?
Tunneled in, it's when you're in a lethal confrontation, the adrenaline takes over. The adrenaline's kind of a survival mechanism. You start to lose vision on the periphery, and you kind of focus directly on only the threat.
And at the time that you fired on the suspect, what was the threat?
The suspect.
Mr. Martinez asked you several questions about when the suspect stepped over for the bike, whether or not you could physically stop him. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, sir.
Had you tried to physically control him before that?
Yes, I did.
More than once?
Yes, sir.
Had any of those been successful when you were alone in there?
No.
At the time he went over towards that bike, did you see anyone else other than you and him?
No.
Was he a physical threat to you with that bike at the moment that he touched it?
Yes, sir.
Was he a lethal threat when he touched it?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Overruled.
When he touched it, was he
Mr. Martinez asked you why you didn't shoot him when he first went to the bike. You recall those questions?
Yes.
So when he first touched the bike, was he a lethal threat?
No.
When did he become a lethal threat to you, officer?
When he raised the bicycle up to hit me with it.
Did he actually strike you with it?
No.
Did you believe he attempted to?
Yes.
Is that why you used?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, one moment. Judge, I'm retrieving exhibit.
Sure.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 170 and previously been admitted into evidence. I believe we talked about this. This was the knife that was actually found on the suspect. You heard Mr. Martinez's questions, and it's been an issue throughout this trial about this unarmed man.
Yes.
Is a man with that knife on his physical person, based on your training experience as a police officer, unarmed?
No.
You know, a lot was also made about your uniform. Did the suspect, to your knowledge, ever grab your uniform?
No, not that I can recall.
And you were asked a lot of questions about the pen in your pocket. Let me ask you, did you ever write him a note? Would you ever take your pen out in this type of situation?
No.
Why not?
Because it was a physical confrontation. Because it was not a static situation where you would take your pen out to begin writing.
Would you ever have given it to him to write you a note?
No.
Is this the type of situation like Officer Vergil where you go up with your pad to the door?
No.
Why not?
because again, the situation is not static, it's not safe. You trained early on in the very beginning that you never approach a situation with an item in your hand, especially your strong hand or your gun hand, your dominant hand. You never carry objects in that on the approach to a situation, regardless of domestic violence call or a whodunit burglary call. Over the years, there have been multiple situations, ambush situations, where officers are responding to calls and they're simply ambushed. The call's not even a valid call.
Well, you recall being asked questions about whether you knew there were bullets in the other bedroom.
Yes.
Whether you knew there were shotgun shells.
Yes.
Whether you knew the suspect had a knife on him.
Yes.
Whether you knew there was an arrow and a compound bow.
Yes.
When you go to these calls, do you know whether or not someone is armed?
No.
Did you ever have time to ask the suspect, hey, got any weapons?
No, not.
Is that one reason why calls inside of a home for domestic violence are so dangerous?
Objection leading.
Overruled, you can answer.
You can answer.
Yes.
There was a lot of talk here about where you're standing and what's going on. Pardon me one second, Judge. I need to get one more exhibit. I'm going to show you again what's been marked as 307. You see the doorway. Go ahead and stand up so you can see the tape on the floor.
Yes.
You see the doorway. We have this blue, which is the entrance into the kitchen.
Yes.
We also know from the other photographs that we've seen, this space here up against the kitchen is not just open.
No, it's not.
What else is here?
There were chairs, bags,
So
a name table.
there's things there.
Yes, sir.
There's things in this entrance to the kitchen.
Yes.
When you do this muzzle retention that you talked about, do you change your stance, how you're standing there?
Yes.
Come down here, please, main judge.
Yes.
Show the jurors what you're talking about. And fire up back, come on back so they can see your feet.
Body moves away from the threat.
I'm going to stop you right there. Is that how you moved that day?
So yes, it's just the reaction of the way you retain the muzzle.
Because you're which hand dominant?
Right hand dominant.
And when you stepped back just now, your right foot came back.
Yes, sir.
So your left foot would remain forward.
Yes.
And the area where you were standing was here by the doorway by these objects. Where we see the blood on this sheet.
I was in that area. Yes.
And you had blood on your left pant leg.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You know, a lot was made about this, having a second taser cartridge and whether or not you had that with you. You've seen the photographs of the taser that was outside.
Yes, sir.
And just so we're clear, immediately after the shooting, when you walk outside the trailer for the first time, where's the first place you see that taser?
Outside.
There was a second cartridge on it, wasn't there?
Yes, sir.
Your knowledge officer, Virgio, never used his second cartridge, did he?
No.
Even had you had a second cartridge with you, do you think there was time to remove the old, put the new one on, and fire again?
No.
I'm sorry, 381 and 382. They are cat district.
It's going to be just conflict.
Stretch break.
I got it. Sorry, they were in the middle.
Stretch break.
Now, as a housekeeping matter, we've moved 381 and 382 in evidence.
Shown to Mr. Martinez.
No objection.
381, 382 are admitted, may be published.
Thank you. Let's start with 282. Can I put you with Mr. Perkins? Let me show you 282. Have you take a look at that? You were asked many questions about that yesterday. You recognize what that is?
It's a premise history.
Premise history meaning for that particular location on that particular day.
I think so. It's,
Included in there was some information in terms of what went out about the call and an inquiry that you had made.
yes.
I'm going to show you 382 and put it up here on the monitor. Zoom it out just a little ways. And we have at 1221, we have a serial number, 07371, Richard Chrisman. That's you, correct? And that might be a little blurry. Try up there right behind you. It's a little
No, I see where you're at.
All right, and we see an extended queue with a person, Rodriguez Daniel, with the date of birth and unit 421A.
Yes, sir.
That's your unit.
Yes, sir.
This was done at 1221 on your way to the call.
Yes.
Now, you recall the state's questions just now about, well, what you got back isn't on this, and it wasn't on Exhibit 282.
No, it's not.
But you did get information back on your computer.
Yes, sir.
Show you what's been marked as 383. That's the information you got back, isn't it?
Yes.
Move 383 now.
Show it to Mr. Martinez.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Objection, lack of foundation.
Overruled. 383 is admitted, may be published.
In addition to the information you've already told us about dangerous drugs, drug paraphernalia, and weapons violation, there was some other identifying information too for the particular person that you got information on, wasn't there?
Yes.
You got a social security number, a height, a weight, date of birth, and you also got information about tattoos on the right shoulder and the right arm, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And the miscellaneous shows D drugs was what you told us earlier about dangerous drugs.
Yes.
D para means,
Drug paraphernalia.
and WPM/BL means.
Weapons violation.
Carrying a knife like I previously showed you in an exhibit hidden on your person,
Yes, sir.
would that be a weapons violation?
Firearm at the time, I don't think they had updated it. The weapons violation could have been anything from carrying a concealed weapon to committing a crime with a weapon.
A knife could be a weapon, right?
Yes, sir.
Spoken about?
Yes.
let me have you take a look at what has also been placed into evidence. One more time, Rich.
Yes.
Exhibit number 381 that we talked about yesterday was the, just like 382 is your unit history, 381 is the unit history for Officer Vergea.
Yes.
All right, may I retrieve it? And this exhibit shows us that at 12:40, right there, there's an extended queue for a Daniel Rodriguez with that date of birth.
Yes.
And if we go up right above at 12:37, we see the roll 4, meaning roll fire.
Yes.
So that's when the shootings occurred.
Yes, the 998 roll fires when the shooting occurred.
And according to this record, after the shooting, Officer Vergea ran the suspect's criminal history.
Yes.
Based on your training experience, is it a regular practice or is it a good police practice to do that on your way to a scene and not afterwards?
Yes.
The state asked you a lot of questions about not knowing where Officer Vergea was from the time you walked up to the trailer.
Yes.
When you're in a situation where there's a contact and cover officer, based on your training and experience, do you normally keep tabs on where the cover officer is?
No.
Based on your training and experience and 9.5 years on the street as a Phoenix police officer, do you have an expectation of where your cover officer is?
Yes.
What is that expectation?
He is either right there at my side or right there behind me, just a foot, 2 feet behind me.
And when you go hands-on, you touch a suspect, what do you expect your cover officer to do?
Goes hands on with you. Hands, one set of hands go on, the other one go on right away.
So even if you're right just inside the doorway, or a little bit inside the doorway, and you touch somebody and try and pull them out, and they don't want to come, what are you expecting your cover officer, even if they're outside, is going to do?
He should be going hands on as well. If there's one person with 2 hands, there should be 2 cops with 4 hands.
And just so that we're clear, this very small space with the trailer and the furniture, were movements, as Mr. Martinez demonstrated, very slow?
No, they were not.
How are things moving in there?
It was very rapid,
How was the suspect moving?
very quick.
Are those quick movements consistent with what you told us your opinion was? He was using something?
Yes.
I'm sorry, high on something, I think were your words?
Yes.
You recall the state's questions about whether or not if someone is high on meth, they're not entitled to be treated any differently. You recall that?
Yes.
And you agreed with the state.
Yes.
Just because somebody's high on meth, does that mean you allow him to bash your brains out?
No.
Does that mean you allow him to harm you?
No, absolutely not.
Just a moment, please, Judge. You recall telling Mr. Martinez that it's your job to deal with people who may not want to deal with you.
Yes.
And Mr. Martinez asked you if you were concerned about going to Trailer 51. Recall that question?
Yes.
And your response was, it's my job.
Yes.
Is it your job to investigate domestic violence incidents?
Yes, sir.
That's why you were called there.
Yes.
Is it your job to leave suspects of crimes inside their home because they don't want to talk to you?
No.
Is it your job to locate all weapons inside of a residence before you talk to a suspect?
No.
Is it your job to inform suspects why you're there and then leave the scene with them having access to weapons and the victim right next door?
No.
And in this particular case, the information that you had was Elvira Fernandez was in fear for her life when she called the police.
She was afraid he was going to hurt her. Yes.
She was even afraid he was going to come over to Trailer 50 and hurt her.
Yes, sir.
Is it your job, Officer Chrisman, when a dog attacks or when you get sprayed with OC spray, is it your job, Officer Chrisman, to run away?
No.
If your partner goes hands-on, what is your job?
To go hands-on.
Did that happen here?
No.
Thank you, Judge. I don't have anything else. I think there's some questions. Matt?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a group of questions. Rather than have you watch the lawyers go through them, why don't you go back to the jury room and we'll bring you back as soon as possible. Looking through the stack.